Hi, this is Dr. Keela Good Hair, Good Body. Uh, Today, I'm providing you a sneak peek into a course we offer, a membership we offer called Medicine Behind Beauty. We explain in very short form uh, how different issues regarding our health affect our skin's outward appearance as well as that of our hair. Today, we're going to start with how tattoos predispose people, increase their risk of developing cancer and other skin diseases. Like I said, this is a 3-day trial. We will be talking about a different topic each day, but after that, if you found it helpful and want to continue, then you'll have to register for the membership. Let's go. Um, we don't give medical advice, only the educational component. You know who to seek for medical advice, and that's your own physician. In short form, the microanatomy of skin is like a high rise. You have the shingles of the roof, which are the epidermis, and their shingle and how should I say, solar power shade. They have the epidermal cells, particularly at the basal level, have melanocytes that make melanin that shield skin from UV damage. And then there are other layers in the epidermis that are antimicrobial. They prevent infection from invaders. Uh, we have the dermal layer, which houses a number of the organelles, not organelles, but organs of skin, hair follicles, muscles like erector pili muscles, glands, nerves, blood vessels, and lymphatic vessels, as well as receptors for pain, deep touch, and so on and so forth. It's the dermal layer where we find collagen, elastin, and a number of the proteins responsible for giving skin its fullness. Um, and then we have the hypodermis, which is a subcutaneous fatty layer, which is more of an insulatory layer, but it's also highly metabolic. It can be broken down and build up as needed as per energy requirements of the cells in its vicinity and throughout the body. Now we have a number of superhighways in the body. We have the nervous system, we have blood vessels, we have the lymphatic system, which is a type of drainage system in the brain. And then we have the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system, it emanates from the small intestine, conveys fats to the heart, for fuel to the liver for processing, interconnects the universities called lymph nodes, where immune cells go to learn the difference between our body cells and everything else out in the environment. And our lymphatic system, particularly our lymphatic vessels, allow for transport of acidic waste away from cells, as well as immune cells. It's a superhighway for immune cells as well. And like I said before, the lymphatic system collects and drains cellular waste, particularly acidic cellular waste, which you find happens quite often when tumor and cancer cells break down. You get a lot of acidic and cellular waste. The lymphatic organs, just in a summary, include the lymphatic vessels, the superhighway, the lymph nodes, which are like way stations, um, and universities where immune systems go to learn the difference between self and then anything that is not self. Okay, so that it can refine its attack, know when to stand down, know when to gear up and move. Lymphatic organs also include our bone marrow, specifically our B cells and other immune cells, the spleen, which quarters off any invaders as well as any dead cells. So we need a healthy spleen to run interference, to capture what needs to go by the wayside. And we need a liver to process all of the waste. But all of these collectively make our lymphatic organs. Lymph nodes, like I said before, are the universities where immune cells go to learn about what is our cells versus what are someone else's cells, what is um, or what constitutes microbial cells from invaders that are not native to our body, that would these invaders would come to utilize our resources and then discard us like little bitty narcissists. But yes, lymph nodes are where immune cells go to learn the difference between the body we live in and everything else outside of us. Well, this is the thing. Tattoo ink, tattoo ink is incredibly, how should I say? It blew my mind to find out all what's in a lot of tattoo inks. But needless to say, they introduce through the needle, the tattooing needle, tattoo inks introduce um, small microscopic particles that can provoke the immune system to fire. So, a bunch of false fires. You can end up having uh, chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation. Wow, it's early in the morning. Uh, and that makes tissues mushy and prone to several cycles of what is it? Inflammation. I mean, several cycles of cellular healing that ultimately uh, could result in faulty DNA repair. And when you have a lot of inflammation followed by a lot of cycles of DNA replication to make new cells, the likelihood of you making errors in the copying is great. And the likelihood of you developing tumor and ultimately cancer cells is also great. By that same token, tattooing also introduces a number of carcinogens, a number of cancer promoting molecules like primary aromatic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and metals, particularly heavy metals. I'll show you. So these are examples of the haptens. By themselves, they would not elicit an immune response, but when bound to a substrate like a protein in the blood, these things can initiate inflammation um, at the molecular level. And anytime a tissue is inflamed, it's not working properly because it's trying to put out a so-called fire. Um, Anything that's damaging this cell. Okay, so anytime your cells are very inflamed, they're not working properly. They're not utilizing nutrients properly, and as a result, nutrients are being siphoned off by other processes. If there's infection, by then the nutrients are being siphoned off by invaders, and it's just a bad situation altogether. An inflamed tissue is structurally not sound and functionally well is dysfunctional. Okay, so people have a right to do what they want to do with their bodies, but a lot of people are not aware of when you introduce tattoo ink to a body, you're setting off an immune response, an inflammatory response. Um, you're going to end up getting some manner of rusting of cells, oxidation, and you're introducing carcinogens to the body. Bad news. Now, this chart is just to show you that a lot of the colors we see in tattoo ink actually come from heavy metals. Not all, but many heavy metals like mercury. Who wants that? Cadmium. Okay. Now, yes, naturally, we do have chromium in our body to some extent, copper, iron, and even zinc. But aluminum is quite disruptive to our cells, as are cadmium, mercury, and so many other heavy metals. But it's the heavy metals that impart color for the most part to the ink. So the brighter the tattoo, you already know, the higher the heavy metal load. There are other ingredients in tattoo ink that are not necessarily um, haptens or metals, but these are just a few. Um, the iron oxide, car straight carbon, and logwood give a black color. Ochre is ferric oxide. It tends to give a rust color, otherwise known as brown. Then are there are cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, cadmium red, iron oxide, common just regular old rust from some piece of iron that is corroding, and then naphthol AS pigment. All of those give red, give the color red. Then we have cadmium yellow, ochre, curcuma yellow, chrome yellow, which is um, lead chromate. That's what PbCrO means, lead chromate, which is often mixed with lead sulfate, which is that's what PbS means. Um, Sometimes it just pays to have a chemistry background. I've been doing this for years. But I can tell you, nothing here is really all that nice for cells. It's not healthy. When it comes to greens, we're looking at chromic oxide, otherwise known as chrysalis green or anadomys green, lead chromate, uh, phthalocyanine dyes, doesn't sound good at all, and ferrocyanides and ferric cyanides. Okay. The thing you have to be concerned about is that when these things hit light, then and they're broken down, what are they becoming? When you're in an electromagnetic field, how are they pulling? What is the magnetism of the metals in these inks? When we're talking about azure blue, cobalt, phthalocyanine, cobalt aluminate. We're listen, we're talking about structures that in many ways look like certain vitamins, like vitamin B12. Do you really want these things in you? Because how is your body going to tell the difference when the structures are so similar? Then when we have violet, we're dealing a lot with manganese. Um, and that's relevant because manganese is a signal for puberty. So do we really want manganese ammonium pyrophosphate in our system? Or any aluminum salts, diazosine or carbazole? Do we want things like that? Do they sound like they have a mother? Okay. When we're talking about the pigment white, we're talking about lead carbamate, the name alone, oh my, titanium dioxide, barium sulfate, and zinc oxide. These don't sound like they have a mother, do they? They don't sound like they grow in sunlight. Yes, they may be impacted by sunlight, but they grow in sunlight and are they toxic? Probably to some degree, yes. And then we have henna dye. And some people are allergic to that as well. Penadie, as well as paraphenylene diamine. Um, Listen, anytime the names are hard to pronounce, they don't belong in you or me. Now, when it comes to tattoos, you want to know where the ink goes? Hmm. It penetrates deeply into the through the epidermis into the dermis. So the epidermis is this darker layer here. So this would be a richly melanated person, 9 times out of 10, and then this is the dermis. The ink is being introduced into the dermal layer. That's where we have a lot of blood vessels, immune um, a lot of lymphatic vessels, blood vessels, nerves, glands, muscles. We have a lot of dynamic movement in the dermal layer. We have it in the epidermal layer too, the crust, but we have even more so in the dermal layer. Well, that ink doesn't just sit there, it's either transported by active transport, particularly macrophages and immune macrophages in the skin, or it migrates to the lymph nodes. In any case, it all goes to the lymph node. And this is a problem because now you're giving the lymph nodes jobs that they didn't know they had to do. And they're used to handling a certain type of material, not this new stuff. Um, Let me enlarge this. So what you're seeing here is the tattoo machine penetrating deeply into the skin, into the dermis. We have the immune macrophages here that they're a type of immune cell that's kind of like an amoeba that goes around gobbling up things that don't belong in certain places. And then we have the ink being transported to the lymph node. So in any case, all the ink ends up in the lymph node. For the most part, it does. Body doesn't really know what to do with it. So it sends it to the lymph node to teach immune cells how to address this odd thing called tattoo ink. Passive transport is through blood and lymph vessels, but the active transport is when the immune macrophages, they're like amoeba, but they're immune cells. They grab up the pigment and transport it to the lymph node right here. As you can see, this area here has been introduced. Where does the ink go? Some gets trapped in the macrophages of the skin, okay? Some gets trapped in the fibroblast, the protein secreting component of the epidermis that makes elastin and collagen, vimentin, and so many other dermal proteins. Some get trapped and enters blood vessels. From the macrophages, it enters blood vessels. And this is how our bodies tend to obtain, particularly our liver tends to obtain these pigments because they're going to the main detox organ, the liver. And then some get trapped in the tissue macrophages, the little amoeba-like cells. Some gets trapped in them in the lymphatic vessels. Okay, and they they are routed to the lymphatic vessels. That's more accurate. Um, do I have this already? It looks like I had this slide. Okay, we're not going to repeat it. Oh, so when we're talking about chief detoxifier, we're talking about the liver. So if your body is inundated with a bunch of tattoo ink, expect your liver to work hard. And if your liver is overworking, it is too distracted, too occupied to even take care of the lungs. So you see how this starts to become a snowball effect. Okay, so you've introduced things that initiate immune response, particularly in inflammation. You've introduced carcinogens. Um, you're overwhelming the liver, the chief detoxifier, with having to detoxify, neutralize haptens and toxins that could kill the body. It's too much. It's a lot of work that we ask of our livers. Um, the liver will have problems detoxifying extra toxins that are outside of its range of normal hormones. Um, so our liver, in fact, does break down and neutralize a lot of sex hormones. And when our liver is not working properly, it can't do that. So when if you're if you drink alcohol, use controlled substances, um, you're not eating right, your cells are not going to function properly. So you're going to build up toxins within your body, not just from what you're consuming, but because you have faulty machinery in the body. Uh, Say that you've taken a medication that robs you of nutrients, and then certain organelles within cells can't work properly. You've been exposed to pollution or pesticides. Well, pesticides are a form of pollution in your water, air, or in your produce. Your body's just overwhelmed. So it makes sense now why putting tattoo ink in the body may not be the most favorable thing for a person to do because it overly taxes your system. And some evidence of that is the skin flares, whether it's allergic dermatitis, photoallergy, where the sun hits your skin and you already have so much load of a toxin in your skin, it'll split them out, that toxin, but in doing so, it can make another toxin. The sunlight can make another toxin, and that irritates skin. Now, each of these effects that are due to tattooing within the skin, it goes from like a few days to a week, uh, all the way to several months or years. I'll show you. So bacterial infections are a great risk anytime you're poking holes in the skin. Um, and a number of the bacteria, the most common are Streptococcus and Staphylococcus. Those will tend to take over and overrun the skin and or the scalp in just a few days because they're native to us, okay, to humans. But the ones that are a lot less native to us, those would be like the coliforms and some of the more virulent bacteria. They may do a sneak attack. They will sometime invade an area that has already been invaded and then take over and make things worse. So the attack may take longer, but it may also have bigger impact because you'll build up a load over weeks and years. Um, Viral infections may take a few weeks or months to manifest, but some of the worst ones are molluscum contagiosum, obviously is contagious, Verruca vulgaris, hepatitis, whether B or C, and HIV. And when they talk HIV, they're not just talking about recurrent fungal infection. They're talking about other things too, like Kaposi sarcoma, which are cancers of that appear on the skin. They look like little pools of burst blood vessels. Okay. And then we have the mycoses, the fungal infections. Now, this is the scary stuff that movies are written off of, mycoses. So you have an inundation and overrunning of your skin with fungi. That's no fun. And it may appear a few weeks after the tattoo because the skin is still broken, it's not completely whole. So fungi can set in and take resident. Then there are tumors and cancers like lymphoma, carcinoma, basal cellular, carcinoma, spinal cellular. These are naming different types of skin cancer and telling where in the skin the core cancer is. Then we have keratoacanthoma and melanoma. All of these things take a number of years to develop, but once they're there, unless you change how you eat, how you sleep, your physical activity, your relationships, your immune system will stay, what's the word? Compromised. And then we have other skin diseases like psoriasis, uh, lichen planus, morphea, pseudolymphoma, and pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia. Basically, your skin, your first barrier is out of whack. And the irony with a lot of these skin issues is that if you couple that with deficiency of vitamin D, you're going to be very slow to heal. Now, why specifically is getting a tattoo progressively more risky on a population that has been getting tattoos since they're young? It's because you have an accumulation of breakdown products of the ink. And when exposed to light, you give off benzene, and benzene is a known carcinogen. So, in conclusion, when we get tattoos, okay, now I'm just going to say I've never had one. They always look painful, so I didn't want one. But when we expose ourselves to being tattooed, we are taking a chance with our immune health, as well as our skin health. Okay. Um, we're taking chances with toxicities from heavy metals and carcinogens, all of which can gum up our internal workings, particularly our protein building machinery. And what should I say? When you have carcinogens in the mist, they essentially often poison key pathways that are necessary to build new tissues or destroy others. You don't need to introduce carcinogens, heavy metals, or haptens to your system. You will be a tired individual all the time because you'll be fighting multiple wars on multiple fronts. You will exhaust your resources. So try to avoid these things. Here are a few tools. This book by Good Hair Good Body is essentially um, a brief manual, but very condensed of what to look for in your personal care products, particularly what to avoid, because they'll make the bottle look nice and pretty, but what's inside of it has no plant mother or plant father. It's not great. We also have this book. It's our product guide. If you're skittish about what to get for yourself or your loved one, this digital product guide is literally at your fingertips. You can literally pick what you want through this guide because it's not physical. You can be on a computer, the tablet, or your phone and use it. And then there's Dr. Amsu's Great Black Detox products. Now, this conglomeration, what you see here is supposed to be a representative of a tumor or cancer cell. Well, the Great Black Detox through Dr. Amsu has a protocol to help get rid of tumor and cancer cells. Okay. And this is no matter where you would find the tumor and cancer cells. But if you need a consultation with him, get it. Don't delay. Then there's Liver RX, which will help the liver detoxify more effectively. You can also get this at Great Black Detox. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that sleep and exercise are very powerful when it comes to getting rid of tumors and cancer cells because it changes energy, both change energy utilization. When we're resting, we're actually at war. When we're awake, we're at a different type of war. But we need to exercise to correct our hormones and get rid of waste, and we need to sleep to get rid of waste. Um, so if you found this interesting, which I know a lot of people don't know this, um, you know what to do. You can either register for Medicine Behind Beauty, which is our monthly program, our monthly membership. I'll constantly bring fresh information to you, new information to you, so that you can stay better informed then and teach your loved ones what you know. Okay. But this is Dr. Keela at Good Hair, Good Body. These are just my references. Yes, Dr. Keela, Good Hair, Good Body signing out. Thanks for joining.